I want to welcome everybody to our discussion of Fish and Men, part of the Virginia Film Festival. My name is Paul Freedman. I am a faculty member at the University of Virginia in the Department of Politics and the program in Environmental Thought and Practice. It's my pleasure to be joined today by Darby Duffin and Adam Jones, the filmmakers of Fish and Men, and by Russell Sherman, one of the stars of the film. I just told Russell I feel like I'm meeting a celebrity. This is a really fantastic film, as I've said to Darby and Adam. It's both entertaining and engaging, but also a film from which I learned something. And I see a lot of films about food and sustainability. And so it was really a pleasure. Russell Sherman, I understand that you have only recently seen the film for the first time. And I thought we might begin by just hearing a little from you and your reactions to how it all turned out.
Well, thank you, Paul. Yes, I have kind of a phobia about seeing myself on camera. And so, and many of all of the subjects dealt with so well were awfully near and dear to me. And it brought out some past memories and some emotions. And so it was difficult, but it was difficult, let us say, to begin to watch it. Once it started, I was captivated. I really was. And on all of these things, you hope that the person who is in control, Darby and Adam, are representing you in the right way. I mean, that's one of my fears of being seen on television or on this kind of a video, is that, you know, I would come off badly. But the case is that I felt that it was very even-handed on both sides. Of course, I have my issues with some of the other folks that were in the documentary, but I felt that we were all treated very fairly, and the message of good, sustainable, available protein for this great nation came across as the main issue. And it's a very complicated issue, that how do we get there as far as using the great resources of this country for the people. I thought the film was very well represented.
Yeah, I had a similar reaction, Russell, and I should say that the way this film starts with your story, I mean, it's so gripping, and you know, the person I was watching with turns to me and she says, "Wow, now that's how you start a movie," because it just, you know, the way you get rescued at the end. I mean, it's such and it's only the first 3 minutes of the film. I feel that, you know, it's so unusual to see a film that is simultaneously heartbreaking and hopeful. Darby and Adam, you've told this story about, you know, people and families and a community and a place. And it really is just so heart-wrenching, because you make it clear that it didn't have to be this way. But at the same time, by the end of the film, one has the sense that it doesn't have to be this way, and that in fact there are solutions. And I hope we'll talk a little bit more about you know, how we might get from here to there, right? Because you know, everything from dock to dish to this really thrilling story about this school district in New Hampshire, right? There seems like there's such promise there, but those are small, little pilot at best projects. And I'm hoping to hear from you about what you see as the most promising steps forward. I know that, you know, the film takes us to Norway, and I should say this film is also aesthetically beautiful, right? I mean, and that trip to Norway, I wanted to get on a plane right away and get over there for lunch. So what does Norway have to teach us? Norway, the country, not Norway, Maine. And what can we learn, and what should we be doing? I think so many viewers are going to leave this film saying, all right, tell me what to do. How can I find some monkfish, some dogfish? how can I help implement these changes? Perhaps I can, we can hear from each of you in terms of your thoughts on that. Darby, you want to begin?
Sure. Well, first, thanks, Paul. Thanks for having us. Thank you for the Virginia Film Festival for screening our film. You know, we give the backstory of, and we try to move through it quickly, but how we got to where we are in the current crisis of cod fishing. And we take cod because it's such an iconic species. And it's that species that connects us back with Europe and specifically with Norway, right? So there's that connection. And the science, of course, is the critical linchpin about which everything is based upon. You know, we had Jackie Odell, she speaks to that. And we tried to showcase that without getting too into the weeds, but that, you know, there's a term there called best available science. In fact, we had, you know, we had interviewed more scientists. In fact, Bill Karp, who was at Woods Hole Marine Fisheries, but it was just one of those things. It was, we decided in the end it was just going to be too complex, too weedy to ask the audience to try to ingest that. So we tried to bring it down to what are the ills, and clearly, you know, what is at the heart of this is the conflict between the fishermen and regulators, where the numbers are and how do you count fish and the challenges of that. The government has its challenges. Of course, the fishermen are out there every day. They see it day to day. So, but what's not working is they're not working together, right? So the government here, and you know, we're taking the Northeast region of NOAA and that Northeast Fisheries Management Council to show the audience that, you know, there's really this mistrust that's evolved over time because of this lack of corroboration. So what we did show with Norway, we hope, is that you know, they're catching the world's bounty of cod, and they're doing it in a way that is responsible and collaborative and successful. So that was sort of the that was the notion behind going there. That we had met a couple Norwegian scientists in New England, and I think that was 2014 or something, and we just knew that was a place we had to go to show the other side of the story.
So a hopeful vision of what might be. The question, of course, is how to get from where we are to where we might be. Adam, what are your thoughts about you know, what comes next, given what we learned?
One thing that came to mind, especially just sort of following what Russell said about trying to be kind of balanced with our approach. One of the things we did not want to do with this film was scare people away from seafood completely. And we knew that if we didn't treat this just right, with the right kind of balance, and this was one of the hardest things because we edited this film, you know, down from about 400 hours and about interviews to try and show from all sides of the different issues in their own voices without advocacy, so to speak. Like we consciously tried to not say, here's how you should think. But at the same time, with all of the cautionary parts, particularly in Act 2 around the import section, where we go into just the craziness of what from food miles to lack of inspection and oversight and all those kinds of things. To balance that in the third act with hopeful things, with the goods, with how this could work, or even how it was intended to work before the entire industry started getting globalized. And so I think to hear you say and to hear Russell say that we achieved that is something that we worked very hard at, because, you know, so much about editing this film, which took about 2 years. And I'm not talking about 2 years of like working weekends. I'm talking about like 2 years practically full time, to get it to a point where, number one, all of the science and geography and ecology and regulation and all of this information blitzkrieg that the film had the potential to weigh on the viewer, you know, to distill that down to the most important parts for the themes that we were going for. And along the way to decide which themes we needed to let go, you know, like diving deep into, say, Fukushima, or aquaculture, or, you know, things like that. So it was the opposite of the answer you were looking for, but that was what came to mind.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, the other big money theme in the film is to look at the flipping the model from demand-based to supply-based. And I think that was something that once we wrapped our head around it, it guided a lot of different themes and back to, kind of that one central theme.
Yeah, and that's really such a fascinating challenge, right? How do you shift demand by shifting supply, given how entrenched these traditions and these tastes are? One image that I was looking for, and I may have missed it in the film, with respect to the fish itself, was the sacred cod in the Massachusetts House of Representatives. I don't know if you had a chance to see this, or if any of you have visited there. I spent 2 years working in the State House in Boston, and boy, that cod up there, this wooden cod that's been there for centuries, is really something that I think says a lot, consistent with your story about the place of cod in this place. Really,
yeah, we shot it. We were there. It wound up not making it in for one reason or another, but yes, we were there. We got to.
Did you see it singing "Don't Worry, Be Happy"? Because most people don't actually get to see. Russell, I'm hoping you can give us a little update. Tell us what's happening in Gloucester these days, and what has happened in the last couple of years since the film was shot. And how are you doing? What are you up to?
Well, since the film has been shot, there have been things. The fleet has diminished more, of course, as was predicted, and as circumstances warrant. There are very few small dayboat fellows left. A handful, 8 or 9 perhaps.
Oh, wow.
And I would believe perhaps 8 boats that are capable of going offshore. However, the larger boats are profitable and are doing well. There is an abundance of certain species out there. The market is always a great problem. Although we found with, God forbid, this COVID emergency and terrible pandemic, that a lot of the fish has gone out from the wharfs directly to the people. A couple of the wharfs have set up, the Gigalonis have set up from the boat, they have a big van outside, a big bus that's been converted to a market. People come by in lines and pick up very daily fresh fish at a very reasonable rate. The governor of Massachusetts has put some money into the fact on putting local products, not only farm products, but now fish products, into the local economy. We have a great wealth here that people don't appreciate it. And I think another thing that perhaps will help us with the marketing in the future is the influx of foreign people come to this country to work and become citizens. And their tastes are much different than the old Yankee tastes. As we found with the older Italian generation, when that went by the by, a lot of the want for whiting and some of the underutilized species that are so delicious, but the young housewives of today either don't have the time or the notion to cook them and stuff. But they're very reasonable, and you'll find that people who come into this country are looking for a value and realize good value from all over the world. And so I think there's hope in that direction, although I do see a further consolidation of the industry, the New England groundfish industry. It is inevitable with the quota system and the fluctuations and regulations. Only a person or a business that is well-founded and well-based is going to survive.
Are you there now, Russell? Are you in Gloucester?
Yes, sir, I am. I finally retired the 5th of September. I just quit right on the spot. I lost a trip of fish. I haven't been able to get a quality crew, really good fellows, but not not too knowledgeable, and at my advanced age and everything, And we went out for a couple of days, and I lost the whole trip. And I realized at that point, it was a great epiphany, I guess is the watchword today, that I was all done. I'd had enough. And we finally, it took us a whole year, Paul, to sell the vessel. The permit was a very easy sell, and because that is the future. The vessel itself was in good shape, but 40 years old, and then, you know. And so we finally finished up with that, and I'm starting to enjoy retirement. Although next spring, I think I'll probably run one of these little, I have an opportunity to run one of these little sightseeing boats around the harbor and tell tall tales and greet the people. So I'm kind of looking forward to that.
Well, I suspect you have a very successful second career in store, Russell. Congratulations on the retirement. And I'm so glad that your story has been recorded by Adam and Darby. It's really tremendous. Adam and Darby, tell us a little bit about what you think the future holds in terms of broadening the American palate, the American demand, the American expectation for what fish means.
Paul, I would just add one thing to what Russell said, and I think we alluded to this in the film, which is the critical generational handoff of this expertise that is required to be a commercial fisherman. And I think that's something that, as Russell pointed out, that is being lost as these family vessels continue to dwindle and those businesses no longer become generational. I guess the question becomes, how do you continue this on, or how can a great port city like Gloucester continue, or where will its future be? And I think that question has to be really looked at if we're going to talk about the future of fishing in the United States, because of course having local fish requires fishermen, right? As we say, I think Barton Seaver says in the film, no fish, there's no fishermen, or no fishermen, there's no fish. So that's going to be a future challenge that we're going to have to look to. It's different region by region, of course. Some regional fisheries are doing very well, others not so much. So it's kind of, I think, region to region, species to species. But to your question about the future and how do we change consumer, because of course that's where we're trying to point towards the end of the film is we've given you that backstory, but then we're saying, look, you consumer, you in the audience, you're really in control, you're really empowered to make the changes here by the choices that you make, by the questions that you ask. So I think it's as Eric Ripert said, it's number one, it's educational. So it's raising awareness, something we hope to do with this film. It's for people that are seafood consumers, is asking the question, and then maybe taking the extra step to try to source locally or find locally sourced seafood for themselves. And that may be experimenting with fish that they're not previously familiar with, but that those are the kind of steps I think that will be necessary in order to see some significant changes.
Yeah, Dan Barber, who appears in the film, has long promoted the notion of chef-driven change, perhaps top-down change in that sense. But I'm really struck by Russell's observation about what the pandemic has meant in Massachusetts for innovation and new expectations about sourcing, new opportunities for accessing local food. We are seeing that here in the Charlottesville area to a great extent, where it's not just there's a farmer's market on Saturday. We've got multiple opportunities to do several drive-through markets where we can access our local produce. And the notion, Russell, that the same thing is possible with seafood is really exciting. And one hopes that that will be sustained and really grow after the emergency portion of this has passed. Adam, I'm wondering what your thoughts are about that, or about more generally what direction we might be moving in.
Yeah, I had one thing to add about that too. I mean, because I was just now struck by this news from Russell that they're selling fish right on the dock in Gloucester. I mean, that was literally one of the reasons we decided to make this film, because that wasn't happening back in 2013. But you look at COVID, and everybody calls this moment in our history like a moment of disruption, and the way that COVID has disrupted so many supply chains of so many things in our lives, it could be interesting. Like, people keep talking about new normal, but a new normal might be that people realize that because everybody's having stuff shipped to their houses now, that it's okay. It's okay to, even if you're in quote unquote flyover country, and this is one of those areas that we like to dance around in our film a lot, because it's easy to talk about this when all of us live on a coast somewhere. But one thing we definitely don't do in our film is make it seem bad to freeze fish. Maybe freezing it twice isn't good, but freezing it once is okay. Like, let's just all agree.
Right.
Okay. And so that means that if you have a laptop, you can get online and go to hundreds of different individual fishermen and these places that are supplying these farmers markets. If you live in Columbus, Ohio, or Houston, Texas, and you can get fresh fish sent to your door, and probably the name of the captain is right on that label. So I feel like people have been doing that out of necessity. That would be really interesting to see, if, because what that does is it sort of takes this whole like trip to China and back out of it. And it also kind of says, it kind of takes, in a way, because I think this is the one sort of elephant in the room that it's hard to talk about, is the big processors, you know, and they're the ones that are buying fish. Like we talk about Gorton's in the film,
Yeah.
but many of those all around the country that are buying fish, you know, like Russell describes in the film, you know, basically on the stock market internationally, that not, you know, not locally at all. And then that's what you get in your grocery store at the point of contact for retail. So hopefully people will realize, you know, you don't have to go through those giant processors, and then maybe, just maybe, the processors will start getting on board somehow, because that's the tectonic plate right there that needs to kind of shift to make like a real, you know, a macro a shift in the market.
Well, that is, I think, a perfect place for us to end, or at least to stop, both by recognizing the tectonic level challenges that remain, but also acknowledging that there is this promising disruption. And I think for us, you know, the challenge will be to build on that, given all that we see and learn in Fish and Men. So I want to thank you all for joining me in this conversation, but also for making such a fantastic film.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you, sir.